welcome to another episode of Mommy Needs a Break. It's a podcast for moms who don't have it together, because we don't have it together, okay? My name is Megan Thomas at Meg Scoop all over the internet.
And I'm Marisa Johnson. She is Marisa J.
And follow the podcast at MNAB Podcast all over social media. And today we have a super special guest. This is the guest we've been waiting on.
No,
okay?
seriously.
This beautiful lady, we have been waiting on her because she has not only she's gonna tell us what we need to know, because she is a child mental wait, let me get that right. She is a child mental health therapist. I'm so excited. And her official title, Associate Professional Clinical Counselor. Y'all give it up for Megan Coulter.
Thank you guys for having me.
Scoot up a little bit, because we want to hear everything you got to say, girl. Everything, all right? Because you deal with children. Yes. You know if we should beat them or not.
Lord.
That's really what we're going to talk about.
Don't report us.
Right?
Okay.
We're going to talk about beating your kids. We're going to talk about some plastic surgery. We're talking about a bunch of stuff today on this episode. Marisa's still laughing.
Sorry.
Beat your kids.
Right. Megan's too much.
But
before we get into all that, we have a segment called Ain't No Shame, where we basically talk about things that other people might look down upon, but here is like a no judgment free zone. So for me, and then we start with Ain't No Shame. Mm-hmm. So Ain't No Shame in, I would say, letting your baby sleep with you. I know it's kind of looked down upon, but lately we've just been, I don't know, Halo's been a good sleeper. Mm-hmm. She's been sleeping in her bed, or in her crib. But for all of a sudden, like the past 2 weeks, she just wants to be in our bed. And right. I know Terell probably looks at me like, for real, like another night she's in our bed. But
you just let her?
I just let her. And this is probably going to go with my discipline and all that stuff. But like, I'm just such a softie. And mommy. And I let her sleep in my bed.
She doesn't bother you, kick you all throughout the night?
Oh, yes.
So you're getting terrible sleep.
Oh, yeah. And then she rolls on both of us. She takes over the whole bed, literally.
Oh, child. That's I just started to sleep train Mav. And now he be crying. He sleeps in our room now. So I just be looking at him in his crib in the dark. Because I see his little head pop up in the dark over the edge. And he just be trying to look at me, but it's dark.
I would keep my eyes
closed.
And
he starts crying. And I'm just I be trying not to breathe or move or nothing. Because as long as he knows that I'm not awake, then he'll stop crying.
Right,
and then okay, she's not going to pick me up. But I had to get to that point because I was picking him up my fiance was like, you going to learn. You're going to learn.
Yeah.
You keep picking him up. Yeah. Eventually I was like, you just going to have to cry.
Yeah. She's been great. She's always slept in her crib. It's just
That's
now
good.
I'm not sure what it is that she just wants to be in our bed.
You just love it. Eating it up.
You
going to get tired of it. You're going to wake up with bags in your eyes and be like, you know what? Today is the day.
Right.
She got to go back to her crib. Okay. Ain't no shame in let your baby lick the TV. Look, y'all. So this is what it is. So when I'm watching Mav, I have to baby proof our little play area where the TV is, and I didn't want to put a gate in front of the TV because then it covers the TV. So I was like, you know what, just leave it open, whatever. So he crawled up to the TV, and little kids love to be on the TV like this, right? They just, I guess they feel the bright colors, they just like to be super close, right? So I always pull them away. I just was tired of it, and I was on a conference call, I was tired, and I had pulled him away 5 times already. So then I was like, you know what? You just stay right there. And I turned and looked, and he was licking the TV. And I was like, if it shocks him, he'll get away.
Does it taste good now?
He'll learn.
And I just was looking. I was on my conference call just looking at him, lick the TV. And I was like, I'm going to just let you lick the TV.
What was on TV?
It was his little baby show.
Oh.
Just one of his little...
Hey, I was like, maybe he saw food.
It was a cartoon. He'd be trying to interact with. I'm just if you don't get away from this TV. So he licked it, and I almost wanted it to shock him. So he'd be like, let me not do that again. But it apparently didn't, because he done slobbed all over my TV. Ain't no shame. Let your baby lick the TV.
Yeah, hey.
All right, let's talk about some mommy tips. Today we're going to talk about discipline because we have a child mental health therapist. I can't say that stuff today.
Child mental health
5 times 5.
Yes. So we're going to talk about discipline, and I guess I kind of already said it. You just continuously move your child away from stuff instead of beating them, because I was raised old school. You beat your kids.
Oh yeah.
But I really don't want to beat Matt, but I feel like he keep trying me.
Hey.
I might have. He a boy too? I don't know. Y'all help me. What about you, Marisa?
I guess The only thing, so this is where I need help. So she throws tantrums now, and I ignore her. I ignore them. Surprisingly, Terell will like go and like really talk to her, like, "Hey, what's wrong with you? What do you need? Me, I just ignore her, and then she eventually stops crying. But other than that, I have no discipline skills whatsoever, and I really think it stems from because we were so disciplined. I mean, we were whooped, slapped, all that, right? And so now I'm just like, okay, Halo, like, yeah, okay, all right. And so there's no balance for me.
Right.
You know.
Wait, what are you supposed to do, Megan?
Yeah.
So
your child is in the middle of the grocery store and throws a tantrum.
Oh, that's
what
Halo.
do you do?
Okay, so,
leave them.
Right.
Let CPS take your kids. Okay.
You do the dash out of the store. But before we even get to that point, right, where they're in the store having the tantrum, it's like, it starts way back, like, once you first start having those initial like temper tantrums and things like that, right? Which you're providing a lot of redirection, right?
Okay.
So I really tried to emphasize doing a lot of redirection with kiddos first, like, hey, that's not okay, or let's do this, or like, either the act of ignoring or taking their attention away, right?
Wait, that's a term, active ignoring?
So
yes,
because you have to intentionally.
Yeah. And
I'm not going to talk to you.
Tap into your inner petty and just be like, like, no, you don't see it. And then it's like, with the act of ignoring, what you really want to do is like, any behavior that's like disruptive or something that, an undesirable behavior, essentially, right? You're going to actively ignore it. You're not even going to give it the time of day, right? And then the emphasis then is on praising them or acknowledging them, right, for the desirable behaviors, right? Like good job and everything like that, that positive reinforcement, right? So from that standpoint, before we even get to the grocery store, right, like taking a step back and starting like baseline, like setting those expectations, right? Yeah. So that's why sometimes, I don't know if you guys have ever heard, but like before I started working with kids, I was working with adults, but when I go into the grocery store, I would hear people say, okay, what are we going to the grocery store for? Like, like coaching their kids, right? And it's like, okay, like you have to talk to your kid and stuff like that, like, for brain development, great. But that's really one of the fundamental things about like discipline, especially in public places, is setting what are the rules for this particular setting, this scenario, this situation, right? The rules of engagement or behavior on a playground, right, are different than when you're in a grocery store, right? You need to be quiet. You're not supposed to really run, right? So kids throwing a temper tantrum, obviously active ignoring, right? I have had situations with parents where they haven't had the best consistency with like implementing like consequences and things like that. So the kid will definitely take advantage, manipulate, and say, I'm hungry, or right. Or like, to the point where other parents or other adults around are looking at the mom like, are you gonna feed your kid? Like, are you gonna do your job? And the mom's like, he just ate.
Right. You don't know my situation. You don't know our story.
So like active ignoring, but when you're in that situation, it's definitely difficult. Each child is different. Each parent is different. It really comes down to like the parents' like coping mechanisms, right? Like how are they able to cope? Because it's really difficult to discipline if you're dysregulated, right? Because
wait, what does that mean?
Can you explain? Yeah.
So like it's really, if you're dysregulated, like you're really frustrated. You've had a long day.
Right.
Just you're having a really bad day and you have to manage this little person who's not being the most pleasant, right? So just really having to navigate that can be tricky, right? So first you kind of got to self-regulate, right? Woosah, whatever the case might be, right? Before you approach that situation. And it's a lot easier said than done, but practice makes perfect, right? Or at least not even perfect, like, creates that habit of implementing effective.
Right.
Because the biggest thing with discipline is being like effective and then being consistent. And that's where a lot of parents fall short, is the consistency piece of it. Because they're like, okay. Like some days they want to be authoritative. Other days they're like, just let them go. Like they're not breaking anything. They're not, they're not making a mess. Just let them go. Like they're fine. Right. And so that's not always, consistency is the biggest piece, I would say, for parents, is consistency. So setting some sort of like simple rule, right? Some sort of simple rule that you can realistically enforce, right?
Okay. What's an example?
So, for example, if you set like a simple rule, like, we're not going to run in the grocery store, okay? Baseline. It doesn't matter what grocery store we're in, whether it's Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Food for Less.
Right. You know, right.
No running in the grocery store.
Right.
Okay.
Right? Okay, boom. Baseline rule, right? Very simple. Kid breaks the rule or whatever. Okay, there's some sort of consequence.
Okay.
Right? There's some sort of consequence. And
like what?
Good.
So like
good
right?
question. Like,
some beat them, beat your kid. That's your consequence. You get beat.
Like some sort of removal of a privilege, right? Like, okay, you're gonna have X amount of less time, like TV time or something like that, right? Or you know, when we ride back from the store, like, you know, you don't get to pick the song or the channel or something like that,
no
because
snacks.
or
Halo low snacks in the car,
right? Or something along those lines, like, you know, something that is has an impact but isn't like gonna be like detrimental, because sometimes parents like to go for the gusto, right? Like, you're gonna be grounded for a month, or like, you know,
that was my dad, military father. That's why I am hurt like this.
Right.
Hurt. I'm still hurt. Like, father in the military.
Right. So that's the thing. Like, you know, a lot of times parents want to see the kids just like crumble and say like, no, or just like have the big like falling out, because then the parent feels like powerful, right? They feel like, like, you know, now they'll succumb to my will type of thing, right? And that doesn't work, because if you keep doing that over time, it loses its effectiveness, right?
Okay, that makes sense. Wait, question. So if while your child is having this tantrum in the middle of the grocery store, can you just walk away to the other aisles? Is what I want to know.
Each child is different, but I would argue, if you are not alone, technically, like, yes, I would say like you could like actively ignore them, right? But it also depends on the age of the child and like what's age appropriate, right? Like, we have like a 10-year-old.
7 months. Can I leave?
7 months, you can like
right here.
You can like rock them to sleep probably at that point.
No, I'm just wondering. But what, like, maybe a toddler versus like, I think a 5-year-old.
Right. So like definitely like giving them some sort of distraction, right?
So toddler, you would give them a distraction.
Yeah, totally.
Like, oh, hey, look at here's your iPad, or here's your snack.
Yeah. But especially if it's like something like a electronic, definitely that's usually effective, but sometimes that can backfire on parents, right? Because then it's like they don't have the tablet, there's like the whole meltdown, right? So making some sort of game out of it, or talking to them as you guys are shopping, like, oh, like, you know, just making a game out of it. Like, every parent knows their child, right? What would be effective for their child. So that would be my biggest recommendation, is somehow make it fun, or even if it's not fun, a distraction, right? Because the end goal is to get them to stop cutting up in the store, right? Because you still gotta do the grocery shopping, and then make the food, and then right? Like, you still gotta finish your shopping, pack it in the car, get it out of the car.
The grocery store.
The more you say, like, you about to get left at this store.
The grocery store has been like my safe place.
Right.
Like, look, you want me to go grocery shopping?
Right.
You keep the baby.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want food, let me go grocery shopping.
It's like your little bit of a break.
Yeah,
no, totally.
for sure.
Totally. Or like, you know, it's 2019. You can also have it delivered.
I did that last weekend. It was raining. I'm like, Instacart.
Wait,
Okay.
Speaking of breaks, since you are on a quick break with us, we have a segment called Let's Scroll. So, you know, we're scrolling through our timelines.
Yes. So let's see. Recently there's an R&B singer named Queen Naija. And she just had a baby, and she was documenting on social media that she was like, okay, look, my stomach is flat. I got the fat moved from my hips, my waist.
Oh, wow.
Added to my, like, she has like this, like the fake dimensions. And she was like, I took the fat off my waist, put it on my hips. Turns out her butt was like humongous. She was like, I put the fat in my butt too, and like back fat, all that. So she just like she just was very honest about it. And I was just like, wow, because usually girls that are shaped like this will never tell you that's what they did. And she was like, no, this is what I have moved from here to here and all that stuff. And so people, instead of going like, wow, at least she's honest, people were like beating her up about it, talking about, why would you get all that plastic surgery, blah, blah, blah. So it was like, but if she got it and didn't say it, then you would have been like, why aren't you telling us the truth? We know you got a fake body. Right. So she was like, I can't win either way. So my question is like, would you guys ever get that much plastic surgery? And if you did, would you be honest about it?
Ooh, interesting.
It's funny because I've joked about it to Terell, and he goes off.
Like, don't change it.
I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna get like my boobs. Why would you get your boobs done? Like, there are what? Or I
wait, like bigger?
No, like I was thinking more of like a reduction lift type thing situation.
Because that's his play devices.
I mean,
he's trying to have his devices taken out.
But I've just said random things here. Hey, what if I got a fake butt? He thinks it's just.
I know I said that because I'm gonna tell you right now, like I'm over here pulling my pants up trying to cover this little mom fat that I got, and I will tell you that like there's so many. I like looked up plastic surgery. I have like bookmarks it on Instagram about like oh I can take the fat from this area and put it in this area, and like technically it's still my fat.
Technically, it's still plastic surgery though.
I mean it is, and it's not plastic. It's cosmetic surgery.
Okay,
so because you are doing something cosmetic, you're moving it. But I was just like it's still my fat. It's still way the same. It's just somewhere else. Right. I try to justify. I shouldn't justify.
Yeah, but I always get. I've like everyone's thought about it hypothetically, right, or like realistically, right. I always think to myself like, oh my gosh, what if they do it and I'm worse off than I was, no matter how much money, right? No matter how much money and stuff like that. It's like, oh, do I look like I have the abs that are like grill marks, or like do I have like So I always think to myself, would I truly look better, like photogenically, or would I just be like.
Because
worse
the scars are crazy too.
Right.
I mean,
girl, but I'm having to pull my pants up repeatedly over my fat. I just.
You know who recently came out about that too? Aisha Curry. She said that she had a boob job after her second baby, and they just tore her up, and she like totally regretted it. But she was feeling like it was her hormones though.
Yeah, that made her go like, oh, I need to get these
yeah. So she wasn't even thinking in her right mind. So that I feel like if you're a new mom and you just instantly go do that, you might be doing something you don't even like. So there needs to be
like a window, but like for new moms, like you can't get plastic surgery for 2 years or something like.
Yeah, to check the status. Check the status of your mental health before you do it, right?
Well, I mean that's realistic. Okay, I'm just telling you, I'm just tired of wearing Spanks and pulling my pants up over my mom gut. Okay.
Right.
Here's the thing, like I've dealt with body issues my whole life because I grew up, like I was fat, I was chunky from like the 4th grade on. And so dealing with that, plus, when you have a baby, your body gets bigger and things move. And, just 7 months into being a mother, I'm learning how to love my body because before I knew how to hide all the parts. I knew, right? I knew what shirts I could wear, what shirts I couldn't wear, like how I needed to stand, everything. Yeah. I knew how to do that. I don't know how to do that with this new mom body. I don't know how to sit. I don't know what pants work yet. Like I'm still trying to figure that out. And I'm still trying to just love me because I went through, like when you have a baby, that's a traumatic thing for your body. Yeah, like your body goes through so much. And so I have to constantly just say, like, love on myself. Like, it's okay. That's right. Your fiance loves you. He tells you you're beautiful all the time. Like, you're still beautiful, even though you don't like these roles. But
you are beautiful, Megan.
Thank you guys.
When you walk into the room, I'm like, oh my God.
You're so sweet. Well, I'm on Nutrisystem, so these roles got to go. Okay, we're gonna see. I just started. We're gonna see what happens with these roles. Okay,
that's on my timeline. So ever since when I was pregnant, I started like watching TV like crazy, and now I just like have my shows. Before I never watched TV. So recently, one of my favorite shows, Star, got canceled. Like. Out of nowhere, like great ratings, everything, and they just had their season finale cliffhanger, biggest cliffhanger like of the century. And
wait, so they're saying they're not going to do any more. So they're not even in production.
So Fox said that they wanted to focus on Empire, and everyone is like, Empire has been on for 30 years. Like, why would Lee Daniels? Well, it wasn't even Lee Daniels doing. He was like completely, apparently like taken by surprise that Star was getting canceled, along with like all the fans that I keep checking everybody's like Instagram, like the comments, like, is it coming back? So I was devastated because I tune in every Wednesday, like ready for Star, singing the theme song, and anyone knows the theme song, it hits, and it's like every body roll ever, like it is the hilarious show. So what are some shows, that have been canceled that are like your shows?
Family Matters. I took it back. Family Matters from 1999. Fresh Prince, Martin.
Wait, I wrote to Will Smith's like fan club. Those like little urban magazines that you used to have. I wrote to him saying like I love this show. It's like you guys are like my family. It's the only time my family like watches TV together. I was like a little kid, like devastated that Fresh Prince was off the air. No, seriously.
You can still go on Facebook. I started a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air fan club. It's still, I don't even think it's not been active for like a good 10 10, 15 years. But it's on there in the event you want to see if you want to join it.
Really?
No, I don't even know what's happening on there. There might be a whole bunch of people talking on there. I don't even know.
Funny.
Or it might be 0 people on
there. Right. What about you?
Let me see. I think, so being like, psychology background, there was a really great show on, I think it was CBS, I'm not sure, called Stalker.
Oh.
And it was really great. Detective, they were talking about different forms of stalking and things like that, like the psychological aspect of it.
Wait, how long does this last?
This was
that many types of stalking that you could go on for seasons?
Right.
Yes, and just different like storylines about it. And it's like you think it's one person. It's just super fascinating to me. And I think it only lasted for maybe a season or 2. And I was really sad because I was like, yes, like helping people be more like, hypervigilant or improve their safety skills, especially like, kiddos and just people like in general. So I was a really big fan of it. And it got canceled. So I was like, man.
You definitely are a mental health therapist.
Right. Because I watched
like,
stuff
what?
like that. Yes, it was
girl.
so good. But yeah, so I think good things must come to it.
Yes. By the way, I need to tell y'all this. So Megan and I met at a child's birthday party. We both were like, we have some mutual friends, and we both were like, oh, what's your name, Megan? I was like, hey, my name is Megan. Yes. And then she had on a camo jacket, and I had on a camo jacket. I was like, yo, we got the same name, and we got the same jacket on. What is this? Yes. And then a week later, my homegirl's a therapist, and I was like, hey, do you know any child therapists that we can have on the show? And she was like, yeah, you need to talk to my friend. Here's her information. So I call the number, and I'm talking to Megan. I was like, hey, Megan, we've got this mommy podcast. Can you come on and talk about being a child mental health therapist? And she's just like, wait a minute. And we like did the connection. I was like, hold on. She was like, did I meet you last week? And I was like, wait, what? She was like, yeah. So she goes through it. And I was like, yo, we did. We met last week.
Funny.
And I was like, oh, God wanted us to be friends.
Right, right.
Yes.
That's so funny. And so, yes, we met before we actually met.
Right.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing child therapy?
So child therapy, like a little over 2 years, but therapy in general, oof. Really? With adults, probably altogether, probably about like 5 years, 5 to 6 years.
So wait, why did you decide to go from adults to children?
Okay, so plot twist. I was like, I'm never gonna work with kids again. I worked with middle schoolers a lot, like in college. I worked for LUSD, and I had worked with middle schoolers for a really long time. And I was like, no, I'm done with kids. I'm only working with adults. I worked with adults, and I loved it. And it was great. And I was like, no, I'm never working with the babies again. Like little kids, right? And my colleague, who ironically enough, we went to LMU together. We went undergrad and grad school together. He was like, this is opportunity at this agency that I'm at. Like, it's with kids. It's great. You'll love it. Like, I think you would be great there. And I was like, I'm not working with kids. Like, nope. So long story short, right? I was like, you know what? I was like, let's try this out, right? Like, just in terms of like, it's more like preventative care, really. There's so many caregivers or adults that maybe don't model the best behaviors for kids, or who aren't able to help kids or support them, that I really feel like it's preventative care. And so I was like, let's try this out. Put some more like, healthy, well-adapted, like human beings out there in the world, right? Yes. As they grow up. And so I went, and like, I loved it. So it's like one of those never say never type of situation. But now I love it. I'm like, I would never work with adults again. I'm like, adults, who needs adults? Like, kids are just amazing. They're so resilient. They're just, so shout out to my colleague.
I know, right? Wait, what's the difference, would you say, doing like adult therapy and then child therapy? So I feel like with adult therapy, obviously you have, or what we would hope, right, would be like a certain level of maturity, or sometimes level of insight and things like that, right? A lot of times they're coming in with like life transitional things, like maybe an event had happened. I know, like, postpartum depression, like just depression in general, job loss, whatever the case might be, right? In my previous experience, I was working with adults and veterans who were transitioning from previously being homeless to being in placement, and then like trying to get back up on their feet, right? So it was a very, very, very interesting experience, wonderful experience. I'm so thankful for that experience. But with kids, I feel like you get more of an in-depth experience in terms of the assessment. Like when you're gathering all that information from them, you find out what are all the things that impacted this little person at this particular state, right? And then it's like, how can we work to
if not undo some of that, help them move through it and move past it, right? Whether because I deal with kids who have had trauma, right? Various forms of trauma. I deal with kids who have like, ADHD on the lighter end, right? Like ADHD. Also kids who have depression. Believe it or not, some kids can have major depression, right? Believe it or not, right? Or anxiety or adjustment, right? Not living with their parents or caregivers and being switched or having to be in a foster care or some sort of other like living situation, right? So lots of transitions. And, I always have to give my clients props because some of them have gone through a whole lot that adults have never gone through or fathomed in adulthood, let alone as a teenager or as a little kid and all of those things, right? So I just always give them props. I'm just always so amazed at them. I know.
I can tell you have the right demeanor to work with children because I feel like I would cry
all day.
Just thinking about the sad story. Like how do you not cry?
Really good self-care and coping skills, I promise you. But at the end of the day, I think of it as a less of me, more of the type of mentality. I'm here for you because it's like, you may or may not have other supports and systems. So it's like, I got your back. And sometimes I have to go to bat for my clients and put their caregivers in check or put their parents in check, right? Because
how is that?
Right. It's very interesting. But at the end of the day, like my biggest concern is my client, right? Which is the kiddo. And so sometimes parents think that they come in, they bring my client in, and they think that we're back there and I'm like, you need to be doing this, you need to be listening to that. No. I'm really trying to figure out or discussing with them, what's going on with you? Because so many times people don't ask kids what's going on.
That's real. We feel like they're little people that like they're not real people.
Right.
They're just little people.
They don't have any worries. They don't have any worries. They don't have any stresses. They don't have nothing to worry about, right? But it's like if mom and dad are fighting, right? They might get a little anxious, right? Or they might act out. So there are things that they pick up on, right? There are things that they experience, no matter how big or how small. Some kid didn't share, their snack with them, whatever the case might be, right?
Yeah.
From the big things to the little things, right? It's like, just checking in with them and saying like, hey, how are you? Like, what's going on, right? And so a lot of times parents will think that I'm back there like, you need to, and it's not how it goes at all. Right?
That's such like a great profession. I read this quote. I feel like it's from W.E.B. Du Bois, but I could be wrong, so I'll have to check it afterwards. But it says, it's better to raise whole children than to repair broken men.
Exactly.
And like when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so profound because if you think about it, I mean, I've dated broken men, okay? So I know,
right?
Like, it is so hard. And now that I have a son myself, I'm like, I'm trying to do everything I can to make sure I raise a whole child,
right?
To shield him as much as I can and make him a good person because if he gets older and deals with all these issues that we never checked when he was little, then he's going to be so hard to fix when he's older.
Right. And that goes back to the whole discipline, right? Like consistency, setting that expectation for them. So then that way when, they fall short, okay, great. It's a learning experience, right? Like bounce back from it. Like the consistency piece is so big, right? And then a lot of it too is like providing kids with encouragement and like praise, right?
Yeah.
So many times like, my caregivers or parents will say, well, they're supposed to do that, or they're supposed to da-da-da. And I'm like, and I tell them, I'm like, have you ever thought about like, your favorite job or like your best supervisor or your best boss, right? Or your best coach, right? A lot of times they gave you praise or props for things that were your job.
Right.
That's true.
They gave They gave you the acknowledgement for something that you were supposed to do. Right. And think about how good that felt to get that acknowledgement either from them directly or in front of people. Right. Yep. It's not like you're going to be like, oh, like, throwing rose petals at the kids' feet like every day. Right. But catching them doing something right. Too. That's a big part of discipline that people don't consider because I'll do therapy in my office setting, in the school setting, and then also sometimes at their homes, depending on like what's going on. And a lot of times at schools, the teachers or the principal or the counselor's like, they were in the office, da 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 da, blah blah. And so then I like pause them and I'm like, okay, like I hear that. I'm like, so is there anything that they did right this week?
That's important.
Right.
So it's so like, and now that even when I'm thinking about it, like even Mav's a baby, like I can still say stuff to him now. Like, you know, I'm always like, oh yeah, good job when he like knocks his blocks down that I put up. But like I'm like, what else can I say to him as a baby that will make him just like, you're smart, you're kind. Like I can do that all the time with him. And he even though he's a baby, doesn't get it. Like he will. Yeah. And by the time he understands, he'll be like, oh, my mom has been saying this to me forever.
Right.
And even with like Halo on the being a little girl side, I think, I mean, ever since she was a little baby, just telling her like, yo, you're beautiful. Oh, look at how much confidence you have. Halo. And just speaking those words to her, because like you said, for me, it's like, I want to raise a daughter the way like I wanted to be raised in a sense, right? The things that I was like, oh, I wish this, I wish that. I'm like, oh, I can implement this with my baby girl, you know, and so that she will grow up to have confidence and be sure of herself. Yeah, I just think that's so important.
Yeah, and giving kids a healthy amount of confidence, right? Yeah. Because we've all seen kids at a certain stage in their lives, like maybe around like 4 or 5 years old, they get a surge of confidence. I can do it, right? Like they don't want help with it. I can do it. And it's like sometimes, you know, you gotta let them stumble, right? But for the most part, at a certain point, parents kind of lose that encouraging and they're like, well, you're supposed to do this, and they start reprimanding the kid, right? And so it's like, you know, I encourage parents like, you know, redirect them or provide them some sort of direction, avoiding the word don't or no.
Okay.
Right? Putting like a more positive, like direct flair on it.
What's
right?
an example?
So instead of saying,
hold on, I have one. So instead of like, don't touch this, don't lick this sphere, don't do this.
Yes,
like,
I do that.
Come over here and play with your blocks. Come over here and play with this.
Yeah,
do this.
Exactly. Because you see how it has a different spin, but
it is. But it's the same meaning, basically. I want you to get away from the TV, so you can either do that.
That's the intent. Yeah, it's just the message.
Okay. So do you encourage spankings, slaps?
Right.
Like, do you?
So in terms of like spanking, I always have to like go over with parents because no matter how much like media coverage has gotten in the past, like, you know, like decade or so, there's always that parent who somehow like is just like they have no idea, right? So in terms of spanking, I always tell parents like, you know, one, as the parent, you have, you know, your methodologies, right? Whether it's like, no, we're totally passive, we don't spank, versus like, you know, someone who comes in for the first time and the kid's like, oh yeah, like I get hit with a belt, right? It's like, oh, okay.
Flashbacks.
Right. And it's like, okay, mom, because sometimes the kid will be like, you know, they'll feel so comfortable that they just like let it rip. Right? And so mom's just like, and I'm just like, okay, now that we're here, we need to have a conversation about like, one, what the legal definition of spanking is, right? And then two, like, as, you know, a therapist, I'm a mandated reporter. Yes. So it's like, we need just letting you know that if and when I do hear about this again, like, I'm going to have to make a report. And for some people, that can be really invasive if they've ever gone through that experience. But when I meet with parents from the first time, I'm very transparent with my families. I tell them, and I tell the little kid, the mom can hear me within earshot, right? Because we're on the same room. But I ask my clients, like, you know, do you know why I have to tell them? Sometimes they're like, yeah. They're like, no. They're like, I don't know. I tell them, like, you know, it's really to keep you safe and to keep the people around you safe, right? And it's like, you know, mom, I know you learned that. You learned that's effective, but you know, you guys are here now for whatever reason, right? Let's try a different approach.
So you don't encourage spanking?
I say that if a parent is saying like, you know, they're gonna spank, I say use it for I like to call it the big ticket items, right? Like they run out into the street, they do something like that.
I see, yeah.
And it's something that's short and effective. It's not something that's just like you're beating them all the way
down the street. Not like go get your own switch from a tree in the woods or the back.
No, definitely not. And then definitely like, you know, with in line with the legal definition, like your open hand like on their bottom, right?
Wait, that's what the legal definition.
Like open hand on the fleshy part, which is like the bottom.
So that's considered spanking. And so belts, extension cords,
hangers,
chanclas, whatever.
Vacuum cords.
Child abuse.
That's called abuse.
Yeah, it's like excessive.
There you go, Dad. Abuse.
I was child abuse.
Right, I know, right? Getting my own switch.
Right.
Yes. My dad's a military Southern man.
I believe you.
Yes, right. We got all this. Okay.
Yeah, everyone,
and here's the other part of that. Like, I remember before I had kids, I always said, I was like, well, I was beat. I'm good. Like, I probably, with my kids, if they act up, like, that is on the table. I will not take that off. Now that I'm a mother, like, I can't, I can't imagine beating Mav.
I can't either.
I can't imagine telling him, go pick your switch out the back.
Right.
Take, you're going to get a bare butt whooping. Those hurt. Like, I can't imagine doing that to him. I feel like I want to torture him and be like, you don't get an iPad for 2 months. Like, I feel like that's way more effective. Yeah. But, like, when I think about that and I think about child discipline and how, especially for Black people in our community, while we're always like, go to hit them first, violence first, right? It goes back, honestly, to slavery, because we were beat as slaves. Our ancestors were beat as slaves. And so as a result, violence just begets violence. You think that that's okay and that's an appropriate way to deal with things. And like, because think about it, historically, white people don't beat their kids like that.
Right.
But Black people do. Why do we beat our kids?
And you said, like, don't discipline when you're not in the right mental state. So were our parents even in the right mental state?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, out of anger or like, just in the moment, like, for lack of a better word, it's just like, go to like the caveman mentality. Like I like to say, like, kids are a perfect example of like, cavemen. They really don't have the sophisticated coping skills to deal with frustrating situations, right? So what do? They scream, they stomp, they go back to what I like to call like caveman mentality. They're just like, rah, that's all they have to work with. They can't say, Mom, I really don't like that you didn't get the crackers I like. They can't articulate that, right? So they kind of go back to, they just turn into like little volcanoes sometimes, and you have the outburst. But with spanking, definitely I encourage my parents, because I deal with parents of multiple like ethnic backgrounds, right? And as ethnic people in general, we all tend to learn that behavior at
beat
some
our
point
kids.
in time.
We beat our kids a lot. Right. I just want to say that a lot. I don't know why.
Right, exactly. But it's like, it's the human condition to get better over time, right? To excel and get better over time. Like, we're still not in slavery. However, we still have certain things that are deeply rooted and entrenched in our culture and our lifestyles in 2019, right? And so finding more sophisticated, more appropriate ways to deal with situations. Not everything requires you getting struck or getting smacked, right? And like I said, those are for big things where you really need to get their attention. If that's your modality, right? If that's your methodology of how you want to be a parent, right? Because it should be short and just effective, and that's it. Because over time, it loses its effectiveness. Like, just in general. And then research shows that over time, it's really not effective because you just go to that, right? It's like the one and done.
Right. I was ready for a whooping. I'm like, I'm gonna do this. And I'm gonna take my whooping. Right. As I got a teenager, I was just like, all right.
Really?
What? Yeah.
I didn't. I was plotting my escape. I was like, I'm gonna run away. I'm gonna get on the Greyhound bus. I don't know where I'm gonna get this money. Every time I got a whooping, I was just like, I'm adopted. There's something like, I used to think. I literally looked for adoption papers. Me and my brother was like, we gotta find our adoption papers. Mind you, my mom is Korean, my dad is Black. Like, we look like this. So it's like, where else?
Where did you come from?
We have come from, but we was just determined. We are adopted. We gotta find our adoption papers. I don't want my son to be like that.
No,
but I will tell you this. So like, I being a new parent, I don't really know the ways to discipline outside of how I was disciplined. So like, I remember early on when like Mav had first started to crawl and he was getting into everything, and I repeatedly told him, don't go to the wires, and had to keep moving him away, because I tried to put him away as far as I could, but there's some stuff that I just couldn't hide. And I remember like the last time I like smacked his hand, like, no. And then when I did that, like, first of all, he laughed.
Right.
And secondly, I just was like, why did I even do that? Like, it made me question what kind of parent are you going to be? What kind of discipline are you going to do? Because I don't want to beat my son. Like, I don't want to spank him. I don't want to make him go get my belt. Like, none of that stuff. That doesn't feel good. It doesn't even feel right.
Right.
But like our older relatives would be like, "Oh, you need to whoop him. You need to whoop him."
I physically can't do it, because even with that, like, and it wasn't even. It was like a stop. Like, I couldn't, and I was like,
I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try this.
This is not even. That's what. You're 5 months old at that point. It was like you weren't even. He just thought it was funny. Like, we was playing a game. I was just like, this is terrible. I can't do this to this baby. He like, it's not effective. It doesn't feel good in my spirit.
Yeah.
Like, we got to find a different way. And like, I think also, something that's important is that from our community, a lot of people are religious and go, oh, well, it says in the Bible that, you spare the rod, you spoil the child. But I was like, you have to understand the context of what that means, because spare the rod means like the shepherds had the rods. They didn't beat the sheep with the rods. You understand there was a hook on them. What they would do is they would pull them by the neck, come back, come this way. So they had to guide them back to where they were supposed to be. So when you say spare the rod, it means like, if you don't guide them, then you spoil your child. It doesn't mean if you don't beat them.
Go ahead, Megan. Pastor Megan.
I'm just saying, that my dad used to say that to me so many times. He's like, if that's fair, then I'm a spoiled child. And then don't you know, when I found out what it really meant, I was like, so guess what, Deacon Thomas? Spare the rod doesn't have nothing to do with beating kids. And he was just like, okay. So what you want me to do about it now?
I already beat you.
Okay. All right.
Well, you know that now.
Right, I know it now. And so, of course, the look, we don't do that anymore. It's just it's a joke. Right. And like, even me raise up, Mav, turn around, don't do that. You know you're not supposed to touch that. Right. He turns around and he just smiles.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, yo, I can't, what am I supposed to do to discipline this baby?
Right, because that's the other thing, is like the intent behind it, right? Because a lot of things that caregivers or parents forget is that, we're adults now, but we didn't grow up. We weren't 6, 7 years old, or like, 2 years old, knowing everything, knowing what we know now, right? So some things like, kids are going to make, it's trial and error, right? They're learning as they go.
Exactly.
But then it's like, once they have the stumble, make the error, right? And then you're like, okay, course correction. They keep doing it. That's when, we have to have the consequences.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, would you see like parents like me and Megan who like grew up getting whooped, getting spanked, and then we have that stigma in our head, like we don't want to hit our kids. What is the line of being like super passive and then like, obviously we don't want to whoop them, but it's like in our heads. I feel like it's me, where it's like in my head, we're like, oh, my mom did this, like I don't even touch her. I'm just gonna let her free. Is that like letting your kid manipulate and walk all over you? Like,
no, I would say really it's about like I said, like caregiver coping, right?
Yeah.
Like how, like what state of mind you're in, like you being able to because also in terms of caregiver coping, you're modeling, right? You're modeling how to deal with difficult situations, right? So in that situation, it's like, you being able to like, as best as you can, right? Because sometimes we all have our off days, our off times, right? Rallying as best as you can to appropriately address it too, right? And having those kind of like a mommy playbook, right? Like, okay, if this happens, okay, like, whatever the case may be. And then the fortunate thing is like, it's a team effort, right? Like, you can't, you tagging your partner and say like, hey, like, okay, you got this one, or like, having a standard too, because sometimes partners can undermine each other.
Yeah, that's a whole other show.
And when the kid gets older, they learn how to work it, right? Yeah. So yes, but totally. But to get to your point, it's that, having the best intention, right? And also having the best follow through. Because I come from a sports background. My family comes from a sports background, and my dad always says it's easier to stay in shape than to get in shape.
Ooh, that is true.
Yeah,
I know.
So
okay,
like as an athlete, so like as an
Like,
athlete and stuff, and there's times where like we all yo-yo. Like I've yo-yoed like, oh man, all throughout like my like teens and like early 20s. But it's like it's easy. It's definitely easier to stay in shape than to get in shape, and it takes that consistency because once you have that consistency, you build that habit, and it's just like automatic how to address it. And then also too, you build that expectation. The child now has that expectation, like, okay, this is what's expected of me, or okay, if I do this, there's going to be a consequence, right? Like I have a 5-year-old niece, bless her heart. She's grown. She's super grown. So I'll have to talk to her sometimes and say, hey, her name's Alani. She's so sweet. But I'll have to tell her, like, okay, if you do this, because I'll see her testing boundaries, right? Like, oh, like I'm just doing this. And I tell her, say, okay, if you do this, like, consequences, like you won't be able to play with it anymore. Or like, you'll have to like sit out or something like that, something along those lines. But I give her the rules of the game while she's playing it, right? Because have you ever played a game and didn't know the rules? Like, it's not fun.
And then you blame that you didn't know the rules.
Right. But parents do that a lot to kids. They say like, oh, they know better. Like they're supposed to do this. They know what to do. And then I ask them, like, but do they really? Like, what are the rules in your house? And they're like, And it's like, okay, it's not fun to play a game if you don't know the rules.
Yeah. Ooh,
right?
That's a gem,
right? Right? Like
a whole lot of gems, Megan.
Yeah. So that's why when I say like sometimes I have to get my like caregivers into shape or the parents into shape, like these are the things I put in perspective for them because they're like they know what they're supposed to do. It's like, but do they?
Yeah.
Like right, but do they?
Oh, that's so good because Matt be dropping his stuff off the high chair and I'll just be like, well, that's what you get.
Yeah,
it's on the floor. But I
yeah.
didn't tell him that I wasn't gonna pick it up.
Yeah. Oh.
Right.
So I need to tell him
Good
first,
example.
like, drop it, I'm not gonna pick it up.
Yeah.
I need to say that first.
Yeah, and that's one of the
because he just be looking at me like, so you gonna get it? I'm
get
like,
it?
well,
Nope.
you dropped it, bruh. Sorry.
Yeah, and communicating to them as they get older, like, you know, certain things have consequences, and that also helps them be like, you know, more privy adults, right? Thinking about things more critically, not just thinking, going off the handle and like doing things, right? Like knowing that, okay, if I do this, X, Y, and Z might happen, right? Like being able to see beyond the present. Yeah. That there's either a desirable outcome after this or like a not so desirable outcome, right?
Oh my gosh, Megan, this has been so informative. And I'm so grateful that you came in here because this has really made me go, okay, there's a lot of self-work that I have to do. Even I feel like I'm not worthy every day to have this baby because I feel like I'm gonna mess them up. Like I'm sure most parents
with math.
You're right. But I'm sure most parents feel like, oh, okay, I just want to make sure you grow up to be a whole, healthy, happy person.
Right.
You know, and not put all of my isms and my anxiety and all of my stuff onto my child. So thank you for coming to speak to us about that. Where can people reach you if they have questions?
So if they want to reach me, they can reach me on my handle at MLCXXI on Instagram if they have questions. Also, I work through an agency, DD Hirsch, so they can always ask for me directly, Megan Coulter, or they can also talk to like any other of the like intake therapists for like more information and stuff like that too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Beat your kids. Don't beat them. We don't want you to beat them. Please don't.
Yes.
So before we go, we like to do a segment called I'm Fine, which is a segment where, you know, moms will ask each other, how are you doing? And we'll lie. I'm fine. So we like to leave with just a positive word to get you through the week, get you through the day, the hour, the minute. And today I have a quote. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any, by Alice Walker. And so when I read that, it was just like, look, I'm the adult, okay?
Yeah.
I can do this, all right? This is my child. I was equipped, you know, to create this baby. I was equipped to bring her into this world, you know, so I am equipped to raise her properly. I have that power. God gave me that power. So you have the power to raise your beautiful child.
Sometimes you just need a reminder. You gotta encourage yourself sometimes.
For sure.
Great stuff. All right, you guys, it's been so great talking to you and taking a break with you on Mommy Needs a Break. You can follow me, Megan Thomas, at Meg Scoop, all over the internet. And we have some amazing guests coming up, so you gotta make sure you tune in every single week. And if you want to reach Megan Coulter, my name twin, where can we reach you again?
On Instagram at MLCXXI on Instagram.
Okay. And I am Marisa Johnson. You can find me at She Is Marisa J on Instagram.
And what is our podcast?
MNMB.
No.
Oh, wait. Mommy Needs a Break.
What is the handle, Marisa? You don't get it right this whole season.
Oh, my God.
Marisa.
You got this. Come on, Marisa.
MNAB podcast.
Yes. Look at you.
Positive reinforcement.
All right, we'll see you guys next time right here on Mommy Needs a Break. Bye.
What's wrong with me?
Exactly. That's why I'm gonna make you say it.
Look at my counselor just text me.
Ooh, look at that.
Aw, thanks, guys.
Thank you.